So we have the first summer blockbuster of the year, The Fall Guy. And considering the box office numbers, I don't think there are going to be too many successful summer blockbusters. I mean, last year alone, we had a ton of flops, and this year's looking like it could be the same. Now, don't get me wrong, last year, most of the ones that flopped deserved to, like Indiana Jones, The Flash, and Blue Beetle, but we're already starting off with a flop that did not deserve to. Now, don't get me wrong, there are other films that'll bomb this summer that will deserve it, like Borderlands, for example. God, that looks like garbage. And we'll have ones that deserve to be successful, like Deadpool and Wolverine, because we all know that's going to at least make a decent profit, if not be a colossal success. In fact, I would put money on that one possibly being the highest grossing film of the year. Although, given how many flops we've had so far, it's not going to be much of an achievement. But we're starting off the summer with The Fall Guy, like I said. And again, this one does not deserve to flop. Now, maybe it could have some legs and won't end up bombing, but I have a feeling this one might have to make a little over $130 million roughly to turn a profit. I don't know what the budget was, but I'm assuming it was relatively high, especially given the star power in this movie. But yeah, like I said, this does not deserve to bomb. This one deserves to be successful because it's actually really damn good. Now, it's not flawless, obviously, but this is a damn fun time. This is just like the last movie I reviewed, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, where it's just a fun action movie, and that's all I ask for. Now, I think Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare was just a tiny bit better, because I think the story of that one was a little stronger, and I will say the story was one of the things that I didn't like about this film. Now, it's not what you think. It's not because the story is bad. In fact, I think the idea of it revolving around a stuntman trying to find the lead actor that he's the stuntman for, getting wrapped up in some kind of, I don't know if conspiracy is the right word, but that's the word I've heard used by pretty much every other outlet that's talked about this movie, so that's the word I'm going to use too. Wrapped up in some conspiracy trying to find the lead actor for the film is actually a very interesting idea, and it's a very original idea. Problem is that every other idea in this movie is unoriginal as hell. Like, the conspiracy he gets wrapped up in, we've seen it before. The twists at the end, we've seen it all before. The guy who starts off the movie with some near-fatal injury, we've seen it all before. This is all stuff we've seen before. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad film, because I've seen the argument nowadays that people want original films, and yes, we all want original films, but that doesn't mean anything if they're not good. You can have sequels and remakes all you want, as long as they're good, but that's the problem with Hollywood, is that they don't want to make good sequels or remakes. They want ones that they can put the minimalist amount of effort into, and possibly turn a profit, which thankfully, they seem to not anymore. And even original films that come out nowadays doesn't mean it's going to be good. The Creator last year was a pretty original sci-fi film, for the most part, but it was ass. So, yeah, just because your movie's original doesn't mean it's good, and just because it's unoriginal doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, for the most part, I like what they do with these generic tropes and these generic characters. So, the first thing I'm going to say is that the comedy is thankfully very well written. Just like Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, not every joke lands, but honestly, I don't think there's a single movie out there with a joke with every joke landing, so that's to be expected. But it's very well written and grounded. This isn't one of those movies that tries to rip off Marvel, and I've seen everybody refer to Marvel-like humor as shitty Marvel humor, and it's not because of Marvel itself, because they've only just now started to turn on that. It's because every other movie has tried to rip off Marvel. That really started out with, like, 2016's Ghostbusters and The Last Jedi, which weren't exactly the best at writing humor. Especially Last Jedi, if you're going to start your Star Wars movie off with a your mom joke, you're kind of dooming yourself for failure there. But the humor is very well written and concise. The acting is absolutely stellar, which is expected from actors like Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson. And I like the rekindled romance plot that they do with this movie. Again, it's the same problem I had with some other films, but ones that do it well, I like when they kind of have two characters, like, split up off-screen or in between movies, but then they have to redo it if it's done well. Movies that did it well in 2022, for example, there were two of them, Top Gun Maverick and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which were some of the best films of that year. This one does it pretty well, and it doesn't do it in between movies, so basically negating the entirety of a film at least, it just negates the first 10 minutes of the film, but that's entirely expected. That's basically the entire premise of the film. I like showing all the behind-the-scenes struggles of a film. I think it's a little watered down from how much shit goes on behind the scenes of a film because it's more focusing on the conspiracy plot, but I like how it's done. And obviously, this would be embarrassing if this was bad, but the stunt work is absolutely stellar. I'm sure Ryan Gosling had a stunt double for most of this, which is pretty ironic, but all the stunt work is a lot of fun to watch, and the action sequences reflect that. This is another action movie out of David Lynch where the action is the best part. Now, some of his other films that I've seen are Deadpool 2 and The Bullet Train. Deadpool 2 was okay. It was kind of a letdown from the first movie, but I guess Tim Miller was too busy helping James Cameron ruin Terminator Dark Fate, so he wasn't available. But it was still a decent action flick, if nothing else. Bullet Train, unpopular opinion, I didn't think it was very good. I didn't think it was awful, but I think it could have been a lot better. But again, the action was the best part of that film, and it got a stellar cast for it. So Leitch seems to know how to get in a stellar cast, even if the writing isn't stellar. But he made a much better script with this movie. I don't know if he wrote the other two films, but he wrote this one and did a pretty damn good job. So yeah, the stunt work and the action are all very good. The music's pretty good. I like the orchestral score is pretty good, and the soundtrack of copyrighted songs they picked are actually pretty good too. Now it's time for the spoiler section because I gotta talk about the things I didn't like, and it's the two reveals. The first one is that Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, the main actor, he was responsible for Cole's accident at the beginning of the film. Cole's the stuntman, I don't think I referenced that. But he was responsible for that because he was taking too much of the spotlight, I guess. Now, this is an interesting idea because I know there are actors, because sadly there are actors in Hollywood that probably would do something like that, which is despicable, but it's probably true. But they never really gave that indication at any point, especially since we only had one scene, and it was just a really long scene that built up to that accident. So I didn't really feel that. I mean, they kind of showed that the new stunt double, who he also killed, is largely the same, but they even more of that, they show that a bit more. And even just they showed more of that one in 30 seconds than they did in this one of like 5 minutes. So I didn't really feel that. I didn't really feel his motivation there. Like, he straight out said his motivation, but it still felt like, I don't know, you're kind of pushing it here. And then there's the reveal that Gale, the producer, was behind the entire conspiracy in the first place. Yeah, I didn't care for this twist whatsoever. There was no indication that that was the case, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, it came during the reveal, which the way they reveal his confession, or not the reveal, the way they make him confess is pretty clever. Where earlier on it was literally just a scene that meant nothing of him forgetting to turn off his mic and just saying stupid shit and them laughing at it while they were like working on the editing process and everything. So that's a really clever way to set it up. So that was very well handled. The problem is, again, it just kind of comes out of nowhere and she doesn't even act like and this also pulls the framing the main character for a crime he obviously didn't commit trope, and I don't really like that trope. That trope has been so played out that I hate it now. I got really annoyed when they did it, and really, they didn't really need to. Honestly, you cut out the fact that he was framed for that murder, the story doesn't change at all, because they still think he's dead, so we still had to sneak on so that the main actor, I can't remember the main actor's name for some reason, and Gale, is it Tom? I want to say it's Tom, yeah. So with Tom and Gale don't know that he's alive and there to make him confess. So really, you cut out the part of him being framed for the murder of the other stunt double. This movie doesn't change at all. So that felt like just a pointless thing to pad out the running time a few more minutes, which is kind of lame. But overall, it didn't like hurt the film or anything. It was just pretty pointless. But again, everything else in this movie really clicked. I liked the story, I liked the characters, I liked the action, I liked the effects, I liked the stunt work. I'm assuming they put as many practical effects into this movie as possible because there weren't any shitty CGI sequences that were heavily noticeable. And this is also a spoiler, but the cameo at the end by Jason Momoa was fucking clever. I really thought that they were going to have Tom be replaced by Cole. He was going to become the main actor of the movie. And then Jason Momoa shows up in the role. I laughed my freaking ass off. That was a hugely clever cameo. This wasn't, like, as clever as the Bullet Train cameo, where, because Brad Pitt had a blink and you miss it cameo in Deadpool 2, so Ryan Reynolds had a blink and you miss it cameo in Bullet Train, which was fucking perfect. And it also wasn't as... So it wasn't as airtightly clever as that, where you had to see another movie to really understand the impact of that cameo. But it was pretty damn funny. I really enjoyed that. That was really, really clever. So this movie was kind of unpredictable in some places, even if the rest of the story was pretty predictable. But yeah, definitely go see this movie, support this movie. It's a fantastic action movie. Again, it's not a perfect action movie, but I don't expect perfect out of every single film. I'm gonna give The Fall Guy a B+. This was definitely worth the 2 hours I gave it, and it's definitely worth 2 hours of your time. So that's all I got. I'll see you all next time. Bye.